Thank you, Chairman. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together as one group from all our communities. We think about and we pray for those that are struggling with COVID in Canada and across the world. We ask you to bless us all with wisdom to work for our people and our communities together. Give guidance to all those leaders working with us to help us in the betterment of our people. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to say it again, Ernest.
You're on mute. Glenn.
Okay. We're going to get started. So we are going to mute everybody. So we've got no feedback while we're going through our reports. And then we will get started. So welcome to the 55th Annual General Meeting of the NWT Association of Communities and our 2021 Virtual Historic AGM. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we are hosting this meeting from is Chief Dry Geese Territory, traditional home of the Yellowknives Dene, and the traditional land of the North Slave Métis. I would like to start by wishing you and your family members my best wishes in these difficult times. I extend continued health and safety to everyone. On behalf of the NWTAC, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to all the frontline workers and who are all serving so selflessly through these hard times to keep all residents of the NWT safe. COVID-19 is and has caused a tremendous amount of loss. It has turned our world as we know it upside down and has affected billions of people all over the world. Through these challenging times, we, the leaders of the NWT, have stood together to fight this deadly virus. Along with our friends in the GNWT and the federal government, we have chartered a path that is hopeful for our future. Together, we are stronger and more resilient than this disease. I would also like to thank our amazing partners from the GNWT, Aon, Brownlee LLP, and NCIP for your continued sponsorship. COVID-19 is a global pandemic, and GNWT has put in place public health measures and restrictions for gatherings and events to limit the spread of COVID-19. NWTAC has been working closely with the Board of Directors and Legal Counsel to find a solution that will allow the annual general meeting to proceed while continuing to put the health and safety of its members and staff first. NWTAC's bylaws do not expressly address conducting an AGM virtually. However, based on the interpretation from the registrar that our bylaw allows for virtual participation, so having our entire meeting virtually is allowed. Given these unprecedented times, the Board of Directors sees no other viable option and is convinced the association's interests are best served by proceeding with a virtual AGM at this time. In calling this meeting, the board is relying on its authority under section 9.1 of the bylaws to determine the time and place of the annual general meeting. We understand that proceeding with a virtual meeting is a significant change for our members. This is a challenge that associations across the country are also facing in response to COVID-19 public health measures. We are taking every reasonable precaution to ensure the virtual format of this meeting does not inhibit members from participating or contributing. Our members' participation is vital. To reduce complications and on the advice of legal counsel, the Board of Directors has chosen to limit the agenda of the AGM to essential items only. Watch for more information on interactive sessions that will be held over March and April and will replace our speed dating that we normally have in person. We appreciate your patience while we work through the steps necessary to make this virtual meeting a success. Some housekeeping rules for you so this virtual AGM hopefully will run as smoothly as possible. As president, I will do my best to be the moderator of this virtual AGM. We do have other board members who will be stepping in on other parts of the agenda. The NWTAC staff sent to your SAO and band managers a package of goodies on the week of February 8th, 2021, and it is important to note that you will need your voting cards that were in that package to vote. The voting cards will have your community name as well as a number on each of the cards. For voting procedures, the motion will be called. Wave your hand or speak up stating your name if you wish to move the motion. I will call for a seconder to the motion. Again, wave your hand and speak up by stating your name. I will then call question if there are no questions. I will ask if anyone is against the motion. Again, if you wish to vote against the motion, wave your hand or speak up stating your name only if you are against the motion so that we can record your vote. I will then ask if anyone is abstaining. If you are, that will be recorded as well. Carried. We are pleased to have with us today to bring greetings from the GNWT and someone who has been a steady component of our fight against COVID and is visual on every Zoom call that we have had this past year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Deputy Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs, Ms. Eleanor Young. Eleanor, the floor is.
Thank you, President. Good afternoon, mayors, chiefs, councillors, and all delegates this afternoon. Thank you for your invitation to join you today for the opening of the 2021 NWT Association of Communities Annual General Meeting. As the President noted, I'm pleased to be here to offer the opening comments on behalf of the GNWT today. As I'm sure you're all aware, cabinet ministers are engaged in the current sitting of the Legislative Assembly and are not available to be here for the opening of your conference. So on behalf of Premier Cochrane and Minister Chin in particular, they send their regrets, but they do look forward to meeting with you later on during your conference. As Deputy Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs, I want to begin by saying, we have always been strong partners, and I look forward to continuing the ongoing positive working relationship between the GNWT and the NWT Association of Communities, and with all community governments to address the challenges and opportunities that we face together. As the President notes, personally, I think I've lost count, but somewhere around 27 or 28 years on various sides of this organization. And I've seen firsthand the strength that this partnership can bring to the work that we do on behalf of community governments and our residents. Over the past year, as the elected leaders such as yourselves, the elected leaders of the Legislative Assembly, as well as your staff and our staff and all of our residents, we faced some pretty considerable challenges in dealing with the COVID pandemic. Without cooperation and partnership of communities, we would not have been as effective as we have been in minimizing the number of cases in the NWT. I want to thank you for all of your hard work and dedication over the last year in dealing with this. In particular, all of you, and I've watched this myself through the regular calls and through conversations, you've been invaluable in sharing information with your residents, in advocating for your communities and asking questions during the regular calls with leaders and with officials. And so many of you have been champions in the vaccination campaign. I don't know how many, I've lost count of how many pictures I've seen of all of you folks getting your vaccination and trying to alleviate some of the fear and hesitation in your communities. And the rate of vaccination has been just tremendous. And I'm so very happy to be part of that. Tomorrow, as part of the AGM, I'll give you an update on MACA-related initiatives and our plans for the coming year. As the president noted, we will also participate in the interactive sessions and professional development sessions that'll be scheduled in coming weeks and months. And I understand that other partner GNWT departments will also be part of that effort. I hope that we'll see many of you again engaged in those sessions in the coming weeks and months. On Saturday, members of cabinet will be in attendance for the annual Bear Pit session. This, of course, is your opportunity to engage with cabinet members and seek input on your questions and have conversations on issues of importance to you and your communities. This session reflects our continued commitment to community governments and recognizes that you are essential partners in delivering programs and services that meet the needs of NWT residents. The relationships that we foster and in our work going forward have never been more important than in these times. So again, on behalf of the Premier and Minister Chinna, on behalf of the GNWT, I want to say thank you. And I look forward to hearing from you throughout the AGM and throughout the year. And I myself will see you again tomorrow morning, I believe it is. So thanks again on behalf of the GNWT. Back to you, Madam President.
Check. This one should work. Check.
Hello? Okay, okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. So we will now move to the adoption of the agenda. I will require a mover and seconder for the adoption of the agenda. The agenda was sent to you by email on February 17th, 2021. I have a mover, Mayor Alty.
Hey, Don, can you hear me? Oh.
And can I get a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Clarence Wood. Is there anybody against the motion or abstaining from the motion? Okay, if not, then the motion is carried. The next we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the President's report. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to the 55th Annual General Meeting of the NWT Association of Communities and the first virtual AGM in the history of the NWTAC. For the past 55 years, your association has worked for you and the communities we live in to make our territory a better place to live, a place that we are proud to call home and a safe place to raise our families. The year 2020 certainly played havoc with everything we believed in. COVID-19 brought not only the NWT, but the world to its knees. As community leaders, we have battled side by side with the government of the NWT, Dr. Candola, and our colleagues across the country to fight this disease and stop the deadly virus in its tracks. Just like our motto, we are the unified voice for municipal government, and together we are stronger, more vibrant, and a force to be reckoned with. While 2020 grounded our ability to travel and meet face-to-face, the efforts and work done by your association did not slow down. While the fight against COVID-19 was our daily reality, we worked on other issues affecting the North and your communities. Before highlighting some of the work we've done, I would like to say that like all of you, COVID-19 became our focus when everything shut down in March 2020. I would like to thank Premier Cochrane, Cabinet, and the senior staff of the GNWT for their continued support in both our regular mayors and chiefs meetings, which provided so many valuable answers and updates, as well as advocating for funding for the NWT in a time where business, community governments, and people were struggling. Can you believe that we hosted and minuted 18 mayors and chiefs meetings in 2020? We do see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine being rolled out in our communities, and we will keep fighting together, and together is how we will beat this disease. Over the course of the year, we presented to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance 3 times. Mayor Alty presented in person in February as part of the pre-budget consultation. I then did a presentation to them emphasizing how COVID has been affecting our communities fiscally. During the presentation, I had the opportunity to highlight some unique challenges in the North, which make us particularly vulnerable to the virus and its impacts. Finally, in December, I made a pre-budget submission again to the committee. Having our MP, Michael McLeod, on the committee has helped to secure invitations. We also submitted presentations to a number of Senate committees about the impacts of COVID-19 on communities. As an association, we added our voice in support of a submission by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities indicating the need for a minimum of $10 billion in emergency operating funding to be provided through a direct federal allocation to local governments. We continue to advocate for NWT communities through the voice of FCM at the national level and as a member of FCM. All told, I attended over 30 FCM virtual meetings and 3 full board meetings, 1 in person just before COVID-19 and 2 virtually. I know how hard these 3-day meetings can be. Like all of you, we have held many additional board meetings this year, 9 in total when normally we have 3 or 4. In September, we as a board met with Minister China, Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs, and senior staff. During that meeting, we had the opportunity to continue to dialogue toward reducing the funding gap, offsetting the operating impacts of COVID-19, and how best to stimulate the economies in our communities as part of the economic recovery. In October, the Board of Directors participated in Zoom calls with Senator Don Anderson and MP Michael McLeod. During those calls, we had the opportunity to discuss several issues, which included COVID impacts and funding, federal priorities, including infrastructure funding, climate change, housing and homelessness, rapid housing initiative, and telecommunications. We also discussed the NWTAC document Better Together, the Social Determinants of Health, a backgrounder document, as well as the Northern and Arctic Policy Framework. And finally, advice for the board on how best to advocate virtually with the Government of Canada and federal ministers. Before I ask for a mover and seconder for my report, I would like to thank my fellow board members. Vice President of Cities, Towns and Villages, Mayor Rebecca Alty, Vice President for Hamlets, Charter Communities, Municipal Government, Community Government or Municipal Government, Mayor Ray Rubin. Directors for Cities, Towns and Villages, Mayor Natasha Kulikowski and Mayor Candace Jameson. Directors for Hamlets, Charter Communities, Municipal Government, Community Government or Municipal Government, Deputy Mayor Ryan Yakalaya and Councillor Joe Lalonde. And finally, I want to thank the staff of NWTAC for their hard work and commitment over the past year. Collectively, we have worked together and made it through one of the most memorable years in our history. I would like to wrap up my report by sharing our Finish Strong NWT video, which we launched this morning during a press session in the Great Hall of the Legislative Assembly. We would like to thank the Premier for hosting us for the launch. Chris, can you
Oh.
please show the video?
Is that Celine? We just Lynn's on mute.
It's been a while since we danced and played. Sacrifices have been made.
No, Lynn, your actual Zoom's on mute.
To hear me through the microphone? Okay,
We have. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Somebody needs to mute Ray.
It's been a while since we danced and played. Sacrifices have been made. Great kindness is shown. We are so close to going back to the things we love. Soon we will be what we want. Touching, playing, living, dancing. Finish strong, NWT, finish strong.
We are so close. Finish strong, NWT. So now I will need a motion to accept the president's report. Derek,
Hello, I'll move Angela Mackay.
okay. And we have seconder, Mayor Simon. No, I need a seconder from a different community.
Oh.
Angela Mackay.
Okay.
So Mayor Lynn, I'll second, Chief Patina.
Oh, we had Councillor Wood has seconded the motion. So now I'm asking, are there any, is there anybody voting against the motion? And is there anybody abstaining? Motion is passed. Now, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the 2020 AGM minutes. This information was sent to you on February 19th, 2021. Councillor Wood moving the motion, seconded by Mayor Alty. Any discussion? No discussion? And then Anybody voting against the motion? Any abstentions? Motion is passed. And now I will pass the chair over to Mayor Alty, who is chairing the financial portion of the agenda.
Thank you. So the financial statements were sent to your community on February 19th, 2021. The Board of Directors reviewed and approved these financial statements on February 16th, 2021. Today, we present the financial statements to you, our members, as part of our AGM business. As you can see from our auditors, Avery Cooper and Company Independent Auditors Report, the non-consolidated financial statements of the NWTAC present fairly in all material reports. The financial position of the NWT as of March 31st, 2020, and the results of its operations and cash flow for the year 2019 to 2020 ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for our organization. To highlight some of the items, if we turn to page 2 of the financial statements, the non-consolidated statement of operations, you will note that we budgeted for a $150 surplus for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, however, ended with just over $67,000 of a surplus. This surplus is a result of getting more project funding than anticipated from the GNWT and the federal government, thus increasing the revenue that we received. While COVID-19 shut us down in March 2020, it did not affect our 2019-2020 fiscal year. We finished the 2019-2020 year strong and continued our efforts in the 2020 to 2021 year. The contributions to special projects for 2019-2020 were working with the GNWT and the federal government, again, strengthened our financial position. We did a number of projects with them, which included the Community Healthy Living Partnership, the cost implications of climate change, a climate change video project, a community scale mapping, community planning guidelines, climate change preparedness in the North, a mayor and chief's boot camp, and the DOPE experience. The NWTAC is required under the Public Sector Accounting Board of the Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants and our auditors to formally pass a motion by our board of directors to set up an operating reserve. At the September 2020 board meeting, the board ratified the recommendation to internally restrict 50,000 of the unrestricted accumulated surplus as a reserve for future projects at the discretion of the NWTAC Board of Directors. This reserve shall be prepared in accordance with standards established by the Accounting Standards Board of the Chartered Professional Accountants and the NWTAC auditors, Avery Cooper and Co. It was further discussed to establish an operating reserve as a protection against the loss of operating revenues. An operating reserve is an unrestricted fund balance set aside to stabilize a nonprofit's finances by providing a cushion against unexpected events, losses of income, and large unbudgeted expenses. The most common trigger for use of operating revenues is on the income side, such as when a previously reliable source is reduced or withdrawn. We consulted with our sister organizations across the country and only found one association that had an operating reserve, and that was focused exclusively around allowing for an expense increase in advocacy. In doing further research with respect to nonprofits and operating reserves, they had quite a broad range from 1 payroll cycle to 2 years of operating expenses. The rule of thumb suggested by the Nonprofit Operating Reserves Initiative Working Group is a minimum reserve of 25% or 3 months of the annual operating expense budget. Because we've had a good surplus for the last 3 years, it is recommended to focus at this time on establishing an operating reserve of 3 months or 25% of our expenditures. This would not include special projects or administrative recoveries from NSIP or NORSEX. This would amount to $150,000 to be set aside in an operating reserve and was approved by the NWTAC Board of Directors February 16th, 2021. As the statements were approved by your Board of Directors on, again, February 16th, 2021, if you have any questions, we'll gladly answer those now. If not, we require a mover and seconder to approve the financial statements. Are there any questions from the floor? Seeing none, if I can get a mover Moved by Clarence. Second. By Mayor Sean Welly. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And next we have a presentation of the NWTAC budget, which is myself as well. Grab my notes there. So the budget was presented to the board February 16th, 2021 during our board meeting and sent to your community on Friday, February 19th. The NWTAC board approved the posted 2021-2022 budget. As you can see from the budget lines, the numbers have not changed much over the last number of years. We'll highlight the following though. There's a difference in contributions to special projects. This number may change throughout the fiscal year depending on new projects arising. Noted as well is the cost of our AGM, as it depends where we hold it. And you'll see a line item in the revenue for other government funding, which is the acronym CEWS or SIRS. We were lucky enough to qualify for this funding because of the effects of COVID, and the NWTAC is a not-for-profit. But this money has been set aside and will not be used in case the Government of Canada does a review and decides they want to claw back any of this funding. The expenses, you'll note that our rent has gone down, as well as travel for the CEO and the board of directors, because our borders are still shut down. Otherwise, as you can see, the 2021-2022 budget is very similar to the 2020-2021 budget. If there's any questions, I'll take them now. If not, I'll get a mover and a seconder. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, if I can get a mover. Moved by Councilor Woods, second by Councilor Kirko. There we go. And anybody opposed? Hearing none.
One of Councilor's question to the budget.
Okay.
Josh from Ulukakto, Sarah Kuptana.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah Kuptana here, Councillor for Hamlet of Ulukakto. I had a question on the membership dues on the revenue.
Yes.
But you get that from the community?
Correct. Yeah. Every community government pays a portion.
Among the 28 communities, right?
Correct. Everybody that is a part of, all the communities that are part of the NWTAC pay dues.
Okay. And you usually use that funding for?
To run the NWTAC offices and programs. So a lot of it is related to lobbying and advocating, but also programs delivered by the NWTAC. Sarah, did you want to speak to some of the programs that are of highlight?
I was just checking online on the Facebook and I've seen some programs, but that's the first time I've seen some, so I was just asking.
For sure. No, great questions. And perhaps if there's interest, because I do know there was an election in NWTAC recently, perhaps somebody from the board or the NWTAC could come do a presentation to your council and explain some of what the NWTAC does, the benefits, and what you can tap into.
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect. I see Sarah's noted that down, so she'll follow up with your SAO.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
That's all I
you.
had.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And I'll just call the vote again. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, that carries. With that, I will hand it back to Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Alty. Our next presentation is from our CEO. Please welcome Sarah Brown to present the 2021 annual report of the NWTAC.
Thank you very much, Mayor Alty. As has been mentioned by, Mayor Napier, as I'm going to actually just share my screen. If Chris, are you ready for that? Okay. Are you able to see the screen, the PowerPoint? Just 1 second. Yeah, just disconnected. All righty. Well, as Mayor Napier mentioned, we have definitely had a busy year. And tried our best to keep up with our regular work, and then had an extra layer of COVID in there, much like all of you. So if you recall, last year, just before COVID hit, we were all up in Inuvik, and we had some great meetings and lots of networking. As I was realizing as I was listening to everybody chatting that that's really the part that they miss this year with having to go virtual. So it's really unfortunate that we can't get together. So during the Mayors and Chiefs Boot Camp, as you can see, there's the anti-bullying t-shirts that all of our mayors and chiefs wore. It was nice to get that messaging out about the importance of focusing on that sort of campaign. And we had a great boot camp. We talked about lots and worked on lots of things that were of great interest to the mayors. And I think everybody enjoyed themselves as well. We also had our annual general, this was at the front end of our annual general meeting. As you know, we had much like the structure we have today. We had our official meeting. We also, you see in the middle picture, had our interactive sessions. And I think that those are something that I know we hear in all of the surveys that you fill out after the AGM, that people really appreciate those because they can have a conversation and they can share, and they also can feel that they could contact somebody afterwards. I know our presenters end up very tired because they usually do 2 hours solid of presenting, but I know they say that they really enjoy having those dialogues with all of you in a way that they can't at the big table. So we'll definitely be going back to those when we get back together. But what we're doing to replace them this year is we're going to have a series of interactive sessions over March and April. And I'm pleased to announce the first one will be this Tuesday. So coming Tuesday. So watch for your inbox. This one is going to be about funding for energy projects. So an important one to all of you. And, you know, and not just the traditional energy projects, but things like some of the great projects that are happening across the territory as it relates to wood stoves and pellet stoves and district heating as well. So important one if you can for you to attend. We always will be able to do a deeper dive because we have a little more time on these sessions. And there's some really interesting things evolving around the social envelope. If you recall, it was 2 years ago in Yellowknife, we had our first resolution really focused around the social envelope around education. And we are going down that rabbit hole more and more because it's so important with the wellness of our communities. And you'll see lots of sessions around education, anti-poverty, homelessness and housing. those sorts of things. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And so we hope to see all of you on those calls. And certainly we all have a good time at our social events too, at our AGM usually, and we're really sad. We're going to miss having those. And Ernest was asking after the auction, and but I was saying that it's actually the community gifts and donations that actually make the money for the association, because those are the most beautiful things that we receive are those artisan products from your hometowns. But we will on Saturday at the end of the day, we will have awards, and we had lots of interesting submissions for the various awards, and we look forward to seeing them. This one is a picture of Ula Hoktuk winning $5,000 for the Climate Change Resilience Award. We obviously will not be able to hand you your award and your giant check in person, but we will get those to you afterwards. So, as you know, we had a great meeting in Inuvik, and had really good reviews from everyone, other than the floor being cold. I think that was the one thing we heard. So, Mayor Napier talked a little bit about federal advocacy. I'm going to drill down a little bit more. So we did 3 presentations to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Mayor Alty and I attended in person in February. Very last minute call. But we were really happy to be able to do it because it was part of the pre-budget submissions. Mayor Napier made 2 others, one around COVID, and the second one, pre-budget submission, because the first budget didn't get released because of of COVID. So they redid that process. So we were happy to be able to yet again put our platforms out there. We also did 2 written submissions. Sorry, I should say all of those presentations also have an associated written submission. And we also did 2 written submissions to the Senate committees on COVID and COVID costs. As I mentioned, we did the two written submissions for the pre-budget consultations. We also met with Minister Vandal, the Minister of Northern Affairs, and had a really great and constructive meeting with him. And Mayor Napier spoke about the meetings with MP McLeod and Senator Anderson, and they are great allies of ours in Ottawa. I was teasing Mayor Napier about the picture. That's a screen grab while she was presenting to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. And she looks like she's in a music video. A little bit of other federal advocacy. We did some work with CRTC. They were asking for impediments to broadband rollout. We did a submission. They also consulted with us one-on-one along with along with FCM about Northwest Tel's the way that their framework is set up, and wanted some advice about how to do the consultation. And so we also pushed out to many of you once that consultation was happening. We pushed out to many of you some materials about how to participate in that, as well as how to do some speed tests, so that information wasn't coming from Northwest Tel. As many of you know, what your official speed is and what your practical speed is are not the same thing. Was really good to be getting all that data into CRTC. So thank you. We've also done some advocacy about rapid housing, and there has been some work happening on that. But again, we're going to need to continue that work with FCM to get more clarity about that and get more communities qualified for it. So I keep mentioning FCM. It's the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and Garth Frizzell will be here tomorrow to speak to you. They are important partners of ours, and we use them to get the NWT voice and make sure that programs, for example, are designed to work for us. That's one of the biggest challenges we have is too often programs are designed only in consultation with Southerners and they just don't work for us. So we're trying to move away from that and doing that kind of work through FCM is very critical. So Mayor Napier also mentioned lots of meetings. We had 3 full board meetings. One right before we went into lockdown. I had to go into the quarantine halfway. I was a week after I got back. I still had to go into quarantine. So that's how close it was. And then and 2 virtual. We had 12 presidents, and I participate in those calls as well, presidents' calls. 13 executive director calls. We met with the Rural Forum 11 times, the Northern and Remote Forum 5 times. I also sit on some advisory boards with FCM, working on asset management and climate change. Again, so important to take the time for these committees because if we don't, programs again will be designed to not be supportive of our small and rural and remote communities. So we're pretty aggressive on those. The sustainability conference as well. I hope some of you caught that. And we have been meeting with program staff just generally. They have access to some very large pots of money that they provide to community governments. And we're just not seeing the uptake from our community. So that's actually going to be one of the sessions we'll have during March or April is with FCM. And we'll be meeting, but in the meantime, I have been meeting with program staff to see what we can do to improve that. And they are doing some work around wayfinding and that sort of thing. So I just want to say to all of you, if you have not been successful in the past or not even gotten through the process in the past, give it another shot. And if you're having problems, give me a shout and I can help try to help you navigate. So territorial activities, as I mentioned, we are really digging deep on the social envelope. We have our Healthy Living Partnership, which has helped us do some of our funding, our COVID activities this year. That's really where the emphasis has been. But in other years, it's been around so many other aspects of wellness, and hopefully that will continue as well. That partnership is actually part of the territorial budget now. That's a huge acknowledgement of the good work we've been able to do together. Social determinants of health. I think all of you got a copy last year. If anybody didn't and would like to see it, it is a collection of all our social envelope stats in the territories. It's a little hard to read all of them in one place. It's a little overwhelming. There's not any new data that you haven't already seen in the news or don't live in your or live with in your communities. But in order to start the dialogue, we wanted to have them all right there and so that we could talk about how they relate to each other, what is the community government's role in all of it. So we'll see where that document leads us. I have been asked to sit on the territorial committee on problematic substance use. It is predominantly territorial employees. So I've appreciated being able to have our voice there at the table. And they're just really getting rolling, but hopefully some good work will come out of that. I also sit on the committee for the alcohol strategy and same thing, just getting started, but an important thing for the territorial government to develop. So again, happy to be at that table. We've had conversations around family violence, and you will definitely see some interactive sessions around that. Same thing with the liquor regulations. Those are being opened up, and there's we'll be helping to facilitate some of the consultation, so watch for that. Food security has been an issue before COVID, and it's really brought it to a head. And so we've been dealing with this in a number of aspects, both actually how climate change relates to it, both from the agricultural aspects and from the traditional harvest aspects. So I think there's going to be a lot more happening around this. Somebody rightfully flags the issue of mental health and addictions earlier and how important they are. And we can't state enough how much this is going to be a big part of what we're working on. And again, it relates to so many other aspects of the social envelope. Housing and homelessness, we have had some conversations, and there are definitely sessions being organized for March and April around this. We're just trying to have it not be the territorial government just presenting what they're doing to you. We're trying to design a session that has some dialogue. So watch for that. And obviously anti-poverty, big part of people getting well is not having to worry about where their next thing is coming, their next paycheck, or where the food is coming from. So again, tying all that all together within our activities around the social envelope. Also, the ATIP, and this is the Privacy Act that currently does not apply to communities, but it has been passed in the act that it will, but they have given time for a rollout. It was one of the first non-COVID meetings that I was invited to in May, and I was pretty quick to say, this is this really a priority? So we'll see. I suspect it's going to come back up. So we may be hearing more about that. Oh, I've got Liquor Act here twice. I must have had it on the brain. We also have had a proposal from the Chief Electoral Officer to consider letting her office run municipal elections. And we will be working with her and Municipal and Community Affairs to do some consultation with you about that. I think that's an issue that could be varying opinions, but we'll see what consultation comes out shortly. We also, the School of Community Government. You should have all gotten notice of an opportunity to use the LinkedIn education service. There's thousands and thousands of videos, and it's also where MACA will be putting their new resources as they become available and as they've been recording sessions and the like. So it's quite unprecedented opportunity for that training there for you and your staff. So if you haven't seen anything about that, touch base with your SAO, because they may have heard, or they may know how to, or they can follow up for you on that. ICSP oversight committee. So we participate in that. We're not involved in the decision making. We are, however, involved in process and tracking how things are going and what's happening with the federal government. So we appreciate being there. The Waste Reduction Committee is getting more involved, and we look forward to hearing what they're doing. We're talking with them about a virtual session as well during March or April. This past Friday, we had our first meeting with Public Lands, or the Lands Department, about the Public Lands Act and the associated regulations. And they're just getting started on that, and you will be seeing more about that. This past Friday was just sort of an introduction to the process. And then some work will certainly be starting on that. And as I mentioned, lots on mental health and addictions and housing and homelessness. So we'll see what happens there. So COVID. Believe it or not, we had 18 mayors and chiefs meetings that we hosted and minuted, and Yvonne can tell you Those are very long minutes to do. Lots of great questions, and we always wanted to be tracking that we were getting the answers for you that you needed as well if we couldn't get them on the actual call. We assisted the GNWT with the procurement of PPE through our purchasing program. We also worked with FCM, as I mentioned, with the lobby about COVID funding. With respect to our campaigns, we had quite a few. We had one about maintaining the borders when there was lots of yelling happening about opening them up. We had a campaign to try to make sure that other voice was being heard. We did a campaign for getting your flu shot. And many of you participated in that. We had one for protect our elders, and many of you again participated in that. We had a jingle contest with NWTAC, NWT Music, and we had some great submissions. We did a bit of a shop local campaign right before Christmas. Christmas COVID jingle contest. So we repeated the jingle contest with a Christmas theme. And then you just saw our Finish Strong campaign. We had, we were able, with our funding from health, to distribute our coloring books to isolation centers and to at the airport. So anybody who was coming home to Yellowknife would also get one because they were going to have to go home and isolate as well. We've been helping facilitate webinars, safe restart opening, and HR issues through a collaboration with MACA. And there's a huge volume of resources on our COVID-19 toolkit, which is in the toolkit nwtac.com, and lots of data sheets and posters and social media posts and anything that you're probably looking for, you will find there. Climate change, we haven't done as much as we would have liked to, but we've still been keeping going. We've worked on our, we still are very happy to announce that our position of the climate change community liaison, which many of you have met Mickey. Her work has been extended for another 2 years, so we're happy to have her staying with us, and we're happy to be an active participant in getting those climate change dollars out to people. We also did an advocacy video with many of you in it, believe it or not. I think I sent it to you from our climate change conference. Remember, we pulled you out of the rooms and had you do interviews, and we weren't quite sure what we were going to use it for. Well, we found a way to use it. You're the stars of that video. We did lots of presentations. As you know, it's always educating people in the South about how important and how impacted we are about climate change. So I did 4 presentations at national conferences. We worked with the territorial government to do climate change subdivision standards. That's partway through. We also did working on a hazard mapping standard and pilot of that standard. We're working on a climate change cost implication study. You will all shortly be getting climate data sheets for your community. That was a resolution that we've long had, and we're happy to tick that box off. I have been invited to join a territorial government committee on climate change. We've also hosted with MACA, helped organize an energy webinar. I sit on the board of the Arctic Energy Alliance, and I generally advise lots of groups who were different climate change groups that were focused in the South contact us for advice about how to tailor their work for the North. So both Mickey and I spend a lot of time doing that sort of advisory work. Now, some of you, most of you should have seen, but if you didn't, let me know and I will get someone in touch with you. We were able to work with our purchasing partner, our rural municipalities of Alberta, to get a pre-negotiated discount on finning equipment. And it may not seem like a lot, and I believe it's 2 or 3%, but think about what those big chunks of yellow steel cost you. That's a significant discount. So give us a shout if you haven't already been doing that, or if finning isn't directing you to that program, let us know. Also helped connect the territorial government and the folks that are doing 211. So this is like a 911 for the social envelope. They help triage people and redirect them to where the resources are. So we're hoping that it has been launched here, but we're hoping that it ends up better connected to the territorial system. And we always are dealing with different research groups. We tick boxes that way. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our membership. It's been a really great year. It's been a hard year and a busy year, but it's been a great year because everybody was pulling together. And people have been patient about some of the time for us to get back to you because everything's more complicated. We have had a really great set of meetings with the chief and mayors, as I mentioned, 18 of them. And we have been fortunate to have access to ministers and Dr. Candola and the premier in a way that so many other groups haven't. And we've been very fortunate there, and I appreciate everybody's really being so effective in what you're communicating at those meetings and making sure that the GNWT is really aware of what your concerns are and how and often coming with solutions as well. So that's great, and it makes it easier for me to follow up then when you have so clearly articulated what the issue is for you. The staff, we have been at home for a year now, and they have done a fantastic job of doing everything they can to hopefully have you not see a lot of difference in your service. And they have just rolled with the punches. I've been so impressed. I have not had any whining or people not just doing what they needed to do. So it's been fantastic. And last but not least, I really want to thank our territorial and federal partners. It's really finding, I don't know about you guys, that relationships are changing a little bit because of COVID, and that understanding that we need to work together is which we have always said as an association has really come home to roost. So we're really happy to see that happening. So as always, we continue to push the theme, My Community Matters, whether we're talking about the funding gap or just all the work that we do, we always harken back to that. So I thank all of you for your indulgence and happy to take any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
For Providence, I want to ask a question about our internet service.
Yeah, Evelyn, you're boomeranging back and forth for us for some reason.
If you have multiple devices on, Evelyn, it might be causing you an issue. Like if you have somebody with a computer that's in the same Zoom call while you're on the phone.
Okay. Yeah, Evelyn, you can only have one active mic or we hear you over and over and over again. Evelyn, do you want to try again on one of your either Zoom or your phone? No,
Can you hear me?
yeah, that's much better, Evelyn. Thank you.
About internet service for the smaller communities. when will we ever get unlimited internet service? And it's just in ridiculous cost we have to pay to have internet.
Yeah, it's not happening quickly. It will be a while. I don't, I would have to look that up, Evelyn, but I will get you that information.
Yeah, it's ridiculous what we pay in the communities.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Larger centers where they got unlimited now in the last few months, eh?
Yeah, they did some funny stuff though. Unlimited is not just, oh, I'll pay $10 more to get unlimited. You actually get, in order to get, you pay $10 more, but you get less bandwidth. So it's,
Okay.
yeah,
Check it out.
yeah. I'll get you that information. Any other questions?
Yes, hello, this is Douglas Young, Mayor Toledo.
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. I brought this up about a year ago when I knew we were at the AGM, I was a councillor then. But now I ran for election and became a mayor just recently. I brought up the issue of the internet also about the fiber optic line that we have in our backyard in Toledo here. I still don't understand why we're not connected to it. And I brought it up with one of the ministers and MP were there present at the NWTAC assembly last year. About we had the assembly in Newwick.
Yeah.
That's the question I have. Thank you.
Okay. I know it's in the work plan. I saw it because we when the board met with Northwest Hal, that was definitely flagged. And so what I can do is I can commit to asking Northwest Hal if they'll do an interactive session so you can ask these very specific questions. How does that sound?
That'll be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yvonne, Chief Frank with G. Marie.
Go ahead.
Okay, Yvonne, it's Chief Frank with. I was just kind of thinking out loud regarding the internet. Would we be able, as the NWTAC, lobby our Western MP, Michael McLeod, to see if, because we do have fiber optic cable along the McKenzie Highway, because of the extreme weather we had that is coming. I know the scientists are saying it's going to be worse before it gets better. And my concern here is that Mofier MLA Jackson is asking GWT about fiber cell towers along between Vetrico and Yonley. Could the HD lobby our Western MP Michael McLeod to see if we could put some sort of couple or 3 repeater towers along the McKenzie Highway because of the extreme weather that we're having. And, you know, I'm happy that nobody froze this winter. And I'm just a little worried that with extreme weathers that are changing here, could we, the AC lobby our Western MP to see if we could get repeater towers along the McKenzie Highway. And the other one is I had raised it in the Hay River AC meeting, and our communities basically is struggling to increase our salaries in our smaller communities. We never had ever any increase in our community level. Every time there's money coming up, you always hear that MLAs and ministers and GWT always seem to be getting their salaries increased, but we don't seem to have that in our smaller communities. And that's the 2 major things that I want to bring up at this AC. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you just
Josh
identify
Bowden.
yourself?
Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, couple things. Our health system, our people still go through being sent home with just
minimal diagnosis of what's going on with them and sent home with Tylenol most of the time until their illnesses get so bad that they're finally sent out. And when they do get diagnosed properly by a doctor, most times their illnesses are too far ahead that they can't do very much for them, mainly cancer and other major illnesses. We've lost a few, couple young people and a couple elders because of this issue. They're being diagnosed too late or sent out too late for to be seen by a doctor properly. And that goes the same. It's been happening for years. That's one issue. The other one is our housing was built in the 70s and 80s, and no real renovations since then, and still expected to run our houses like they're new. And you know, our renters pay a lot of money now. Some even pay in market rental prices, which is not fair to them for houses that are in poor shape to begin with. Our health boards and really need to be reinstated as well, because nobody's advocating for the North without these boards anymore, even for Aurora College Board of Governors, the Power Corp board that used to be there, it's not there anymore. So that's just a few of the things that I've noted down so far. Maybe later on we'll get more of a chance to put in our other things we'd like to talk about. But I'll pass it on to one of our councilors, Sarah Kupana here. She wanted to say a couple words here. Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Kupana here, Councillor for Hamlet of Ulukakto. I was just listening to your report, and I just want to commend you and your staff for all the work you guys are doing now and from the past and trying to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I know our staff appreciate hearing that. Just on the previous issues that were raised, some of them you're going to be able to address face-to-face with the Housing Corp. When we do, there are going to be 2 sessions, one on housing and the other on homelessness. So watch for those. And I think there'll be good conversations, and it's important that the kinds of detail that you're describing is actually put right at their feet. And they're going to be working on community housing plans. And I think, I believe there's only one that's finished and ratified. Ray, I know you guys were talking about it. Did you end up getting yours ratified? Just asking Mayor Rubin.
Not quite. We're doing for a meeting in March with the group to get it final.
Okay, well, that's great. Also too, we do have resolutions around health boards, Aurora College, and NTPC boards. That has long been a source of frustration and not getting much movement or response from the territorial government. And hopefully we will shortly. I could see Mayor Napier, because I know her council has long focused on that being an issue. So we'll hopefully if all of you can echo those things when you get to talk to some of these folks during the interactive sessions. It will be really, really helpful if we are all saying the same thing. So I thank you very much. Any
Hi,
other?
Sarah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Mayor Elias from Tuck.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to know, so I know NWTAC here is one of the channels, I guess, on bringing up some concerns. And I brought up concern last year at the AGM in Nunavik, and then I followed up with it. I've had face-to-face meetings with the minister and ministers, I guess. But I mean, I'm still sitting here with no answer for the concern I had from the minister. And I just want to know, I mean, and I know Sandris touched a little bit in regards to the funding that the hamlets get every year and stuff like that. And, you know, one of the things I was requesting was some support for the public transit, I guess, in our community, and with the amount that we're funded each year, you know, we're being stretched so thin that we juggle as a hamlet, and we're the ones that know what's needed in the communities, and we do all the groundwork. And in saying that, I mean, when you don't get a response, and you know, I mean, it's really frustrating on the community, and I know people are giving up, especially with COVID right now. Makes it even worse. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just want to know what's this all about. When you're, you know, my job is to lobby for the community to try and get for what we need for our shortfalls and stuff like that. And like I said, we juggle everything to make things work. So what do you do when you're not getting a response? And how do you move forward? Is there another avenue to use or another resource? I use my MLA. My MLA is bringing this up in the house as well, some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And but I mean, even like regardless, I mean, if you're sending a letter to the minister and stuff like that, shouldn't you be getting a reply?
In theory, we have some of the same challenges. It's hard, and it's often not quick answers. Like, we often have to have things on our books for a long time, and it's just keeping at it. And I know it's hard and it's disheartening sometimes, but you've just got to keep at it. And I know you can be tenacious, Erwin.
Yeah, and we have been, like I said, I mean, this was brought up last year,
Yeah.
and but I mean, I understand there is a waiting period and stuff like that, but I mean, you know, for me, it's such a small ask or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, you know, I think that's what makes it really hard on the whole system is if you can't get that support, and you got like right now in our community, we got a real active group that's really trying hard for the community. And what I'm afraid of is, you know, we're going to lose these people because our capacity is limited, and it's the same all over the place, I know. But I mean, I think at some point, I mean, maybe like what you said, I guess if everybody's saying the same message and stuff like that, then maybe we'll see some movement. But right now it's frustrating to be sitting here and hiding behind the curtains with COVID, and makes you wonder what are you doing sometime, and when you're so passionate for your community and you can't get answers for your people. So I just wanted to put that out there because I mean, that's exactly where we are. And I know NWTAC is one of the channels you use to get the message through sometime. So, but I also want to say thank you, Sarah. And I see all the stuff that you guys have done right from the start here with the meetings with the mayors and chiefs. I want to thank all the mayors and chiefs for attending and putting in the input and helping out with the COVID situation. And Yeah, I just want to end with something positive. So thank you, Sarah, and your crew, and keep up. the good work.
Thank you very much, Mayor Elias. Just so you know, the strongest thing, not just the minister or the deputy minister hearing your concern, the strongest thing you can do, and I urge you to do it for issues next year, and you can even bring it to the board, but in between, and you could share stuff with me, because if I know about stuff, then it just helps me be more informed when I'm in discussions about other things, even if it's specific to a community, and so I have to be very careful about how much work I do on it. But if you do a resolution, particularly if it's an issue that is universal, if you do, or universal, or a whole bunch of, applies to a whole bunch of communities, that's so much stronger than just saying something at a meeting. It really is. So for next year, think about doing the resolution. So when you see the notice, give me a shout and we can sit and talk about which ones you might want to do. And we're happy to help that way, because it's the resolutions. It's a formal articulation of the issues. So you and Chief Sangues may want to have a conversation about doing one about the funding levels for the smaller communities. So any other questions, comments?
Sarah,
Yes, hi, this is Douglas from the Hamlet of Toledo again. I just want to echo one of the speakers earlier on about the medical issue. We have the same type of issue here in Toledo. You go to see a health nurse or something in the community, and you're sent home with the Tylenol. Another issue I want to bring out as well as the housing issue. We know that's a problem. And eventually it comes out to homelessness.
Yep.
And smaller communities. It's starting to happen popping up basically all over. And I'm sure it's going to be happening in my community here pretty soon, once the weather turns warm. I'm pretty sure. Those are the things I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to let you know that those are the medical issue. We'll try to figure out how we can have some conversations with health about that. But housing and homelessness are both in our interactive sessions. We're also having conversations with some homelessness advocates, so we can have a more robust discussion on the Zoom call. But also, don't forget to count the folks that are couch surfing or crashing. That it's really, if somebody is crashing at someone's house, they're still homeless, even though they have a place to sleep. They are still considered homeless. So you may already have homelessness happening in your community. It's just too damn cold for them to be outside, right? So don't forget to count them, and use them in your argument. And we're really hoping that on that call for housing to hear the real stuff on the ground is going to be really important. It backs up the other lobby that we do. So hopefully you'll join those calls.
Yes, that's very important what you just mentioned. That is true.
Yep.
So that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or concerns about our
Sarah,
work
I was-
this year?
Mayor Alty here in Yellowknife, and just to respond to the underfunding questions, like the bus and tuck, which I've been following along the discussions in the House, and it's important to note that 23 of the 33 communities are underfunded, and when you look at the community of Tuck, you're underfunded again. These are the old numbers, but over $800,000 a year. So you can't provide a bus service because you can't even provide your core services. And so whether you're a big community or a small community, we all really have to lobby for the territorial government to close the municipal funding gap. So when you're talking to your MLAs, make sure you bring up the need to close the municipal funding gap, because we don't even receive enough money from the territorial government to provide those core services. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're a big or a small community, a lot of us are underfunded in the range of $500,000 up to $11 million. So again, really talk to your MLAs about closing the funding gap, especially right now because it's budget time for the GNWT.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Alty. And the more voices that are saying that, the better. So if you're poking your MLA, then your MLA is hopefully poking the poking cabinet.
Sarah,
Yes, go ahead.
I don't mean, it's Mary Elias again. I don't mean to keep jumping in here, but I wanted to elaborate on the just really quick on the couch surfing and the homelessness in regards to housing. So this is one of the things that I brought up as well with the minister when she was here the last time about 4 months ago. And one of the things that I noted was that because they just finished talking about the homeless shelter in Yellowknife and how they did all that, and we have homelessness in our community. And I know there's homelessness in a lot of other communities, but it's not recognized because we take care of our people.
Mhm.
And that's what you're referring to as the couch surfing and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought that up. And obviously, I mean, you know, one of the things that I wanted to see is the people that are couch surfing and the people in the community, the families that are taking care of these couch surfers living in housing units. I wanted to see if we could have gotten an increase for, you know, the water schedule that they're on when they get two, 3 water deliveries a week on the housing schedule. One of the things that I recommended is we help these families that we know in our communities that are helping couch surfing. And I mean, something that's super important to me, especially during the winter months. If I'm living in a housing unit and someone needs a place to sleep, I bring them in, they use my water and whatever, and then now my family pays for it. And that's been identified here. And there's been no response back to our community. And that's what I was referring to before when I was talking about what do you do when you don't get a response, something that important.
Mhm.
And it's really frustrating. And but I mean, I know there's homelessness everywhere, but we're not going to get no funding here for a homeless shelter.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we're actually doing a favor for the government, and the community leaders know who's helping out in the community.
Mhm.
And if these people are there housing units that are limited, you know, on a scheduled water delivery, why can't we increase that? That's such a small fix.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, I just want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I to be frank with you, I hadn't thought about it in that that's the consequence that family who's taken that person in has additional costs because of them being there, and maybe that is part of a transition to maybe other types of supports. And yeah, that's an interesting idea. So I'm just a little bit watching time. Yeah, yeah. So unfortunately, Karen had to go have a tooth pulled. She's been in severe pain for a while, so she won't be able to do her presentation soon. But I'm just wondering about having a little bit of a break for folks before Dawn Burnstick is on at 4:30. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, we should do that and then we could take a
Hello?
break. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna cut
Hello?
out. Yeah, hello.
Hello, yeah, it's Joshua Ulrich talking again. Sorry, just to add to what was just mentioned by the last speaker about responses, you know, because I know our past mayor, Laverna, has brought up these issues before, and they're still before you on the table with health, with housing, with other things that's been mentioned by other speakers. I wonder if there's something that we can put forward as a like goals met or goals to be that are discussed, and we look at them to be met in some way somewhere down the road before the year ends or before, say, a 1 or 2 year term?
Well,
Thank
that's,
you.
yeah, thank you. That's what resolutions are. And the challenge is with setting terms when you're relying on others to be responding. Certainly we keep lobbying and we will, the board and staff continually lobby and we share those resolutions. But that's what they are. And so Mike Cruvet's put up an interesting little post. Don't forget to let the press know if you're not getting responses from the territorial government. That's an important part of the cycle, and that's part of the lobby that you want to do. So now, so I'm going to actually just cut this off at this point because we're going to run out of time and we won't be able to give you a break. And we want to give you a quick break before Don Burnstick. So I'm going to turn it back to Mayor Napier. Yeah, you probably should, yeah.
Hello and good afternoon. So at this time, I'm looking for a mover for the CEO, the 2021 annual report of the NWTAC.
I move. Mayor Elias.
Okay. And a seconder, please. Councillor Wood. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, and again, is anybody voting against the motion? And are there any abstentions? Okay, so motion is passed. Thank you. And I will now pass the chair to Mayor Natasha Kulikowski and Councillor Joe Lalonde.
All right, thank you, Lynn. We'll let Joe take the lead on this one if he's here.
I'm here.
Okay, take it away.
All right. Okay, for nominations, elections, our job at this point in the agenda would be to announce the names of the candidates running for the 3 positions that are up for election this year. These positions are President, Vice President for cities, towns, and villages, Vice President for hamlets, charter community, Clito government, community government, or municipal corporation. And I'll hand it back over to you, Mayor Kulikowski.
Thank you. And so it is my honor to announce that all 3 positions have been acclaimed. Congratulations to President Lynn Napier, Vice President for Cities, Towns, and Villages, Mayor Rebecca Alty, and Vice President for Hamlet's Charter Community, Clicho Government, Community Government or Municipal Corporation, Mayor Ray Rubin. Thank you all for putting your names forward and continuing to work on behalf of all 33 communities in the NWT. Your dedication and commitment to this organization is truly appreciated. And with that announcement, there will be no need for an election on Saturday. We will now hand the chair back to Mayor Napier.
Thank you, Mayor Kulikowski and Councillor Lalonde. So at this time, the next item on the agenda is our presentation or our guest speaker, Don Burnstick, and that is starting at 4:30. So we will take a 10-minute break and see you back here at 4:30.
Grant. Hello, Grant.